Everyone deserves a second chance, right? If one can learn from their mistakes, make good on something promised, fix what went wrong the first time, then why not? When a music industry veteran with a shady past recruits a group of talented teens to form New Kids on the Block, the intention was to ride a wave of harmonizing sounds, good looks, slick dance moves, and of course, make bank. What happened was the equivalent of catching lightning in a bottle just before the weather changed. I'm JD Boutillier, and this is Breakout Backstories. Everything started with Larry Curtis Johnson, better known as Maurice Starr. Starr loved the music industry and was a decent enough songwriter and musician. When it came to recording a hit song, he just didn't have what it took to make it work by himself. Recognizing talent, though, he saw what could work. Starr knew about the business of music. Hosting a talent show in 1982, two things immediately caught his eye: a very talented group of young adults called New Edition and dollar signs. He was quick to get things moving as he signed the group to a contract and co-wrote and co-produced their debut album. Before they knew it, it was tour time, and a long and grueling one at that. Starr knew that if New Edition was to be a success, they needed to go out on stage, sell albums, sell t-shirts, sell. Problem was, the young members of New Edition weren't seeing the profits from their hard work. When they figured out their manager, Maurice Starr, was stealing the majority of their funds, he was quickly fired. Yes, he was stealing. Yes, he got caught. And yes, he was sued and lost everything, and rightfully so. New Edition would win what they were owed and the right to continue as a group with a label of their choosing. As for Starr, he would take some time to gather himself, start over, and not be so foolish in the future. Instead of signing an established group, he would create a new one from the ground up. In 1984, during another talent contest, he was blown away by the rapping skills of a 15-year-old from Boston, Massachusetts, by the name of Donnie Wahlberg. Born on August 17, 1969, Donald Edmund Wahlberg Jr. is the eighth of 9 kids in a family, and that was just counting his full-blooded siblings. His father, Donald Sr., remarried in the early 80s, adding 3 half-siblings to an already crowded house. After a divorce, Donnie and his youngest brother, Mark, would live with their mother when the other siblings would stay with their father or be old enough to move out onto their own. This move to a different part of Massachusetts would be life-changing for the young talent-to-be. Attending school in a part of the state that was more diverse would expose him to R&B, hip-hop, and the king of pop, Michael Jackson. Donnie would start to save up his allowance to buy clothing featuring and inspired by Jackson. He would also spend hours in his room, the living room, the garage, or anywhere he could find space to teach himself Jackson's moves from music videos and commercials. Donnie was drawn to the stage and desired to perform, not just mimic. He would later meet Danny Wood in Copley High School. The two of them began to write and perform original rap lyrics for their classmates at parties. Like Donnie, Danny knew he wanted to be in the spotlight. He just didn't know how to make it happen. Daniel William Wood, born in Dorchester, Massachusetts on May 14, 1969, is the youngest of 6 kids. His mother, Betty Wood, did all she could to keep a roof over the family's head, as his father, Daniel Wood Sr., was never around enough to make any sort of impact or difference. Danny found a connection in music while growing up, gravitating towards hip-hop, rap, and breakdancing as it was everywhere in Boston and surrounding areas in the early 1980s. Meeting Donnie Wahlberg in high school gave Danny another chance to practice and perfect his craft. The two would spend more time writing lyrics, harmonizing, and reciting homemade dance routines than doing schoolwork. The duo would ultimately start their own rap group, dubbed the Kool-Aid Bunch. While they were having fun and getting more comfortable performing in front of people, Danny would start to struggle with his confidence as a performer. Fast forward to 1984. Donnie Wahlberg was approached by Maurice Starr and his now business partner Mary Alford to be the first member of a new group. While he didn't have any formal training, Donnie had raw talent and plenty of ambition. Wanting to do some recruiting of his own, Donnie strongly suggested his youngest brother, Mark, to join the group. While Mark had plenty to offer the music world, it was too soon for the 12-year-old to be locked into the business of music. Mark would leave the project after a few months. In case you were wondering, yes, it is that Mark Wahlberg. Transformers, Boogie Nights, and of course, Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. This didn't slow down Donnie's mission to recruit from his circle of family and friends. Vouching for Danny Wood, he knew he had a strong and determined bandmate straight away. Jamie Kelly followed, but was not long for the group. Something to note, these were kids, high school kids, barely 15 years old. So it would make sense when a young Mark Wahlberg was more interested in playing basketball and having fun, as he was just 12 years old at the time. Though he had some skill, the structure, time in the studio, with a vocal trainer, lyric writing after school was just too much for young Jamie to commit to. Kelly was removed from the group shortly after joining. This wasn't an issue for the growing band, as immediately after, two brothers joined the cast, Jordan and Jonathan Knight. Jonathan Rashley Knight, born November 29, 1968 in Boston, Massachusetts, and Jordan Nathaniel Marcel Knight, born May 17, 1970 in Worcester, Massachusetts, are the second youngest and youngest of six in the Knight family. The only two members of the band that have dual Canadian-American citizenship, as their parents, Alan and Marlene Knight, are originally from Meaford, Ontario. The young family moved to the U.S. from Canada at the request of the church, as Alan Knight was an Episcopal priest. Music was very much a part of the family. Church choir, harmonizing with worshipers alike, and time at home going over scripture with their parents, Jonathan and Jordan Knight had a connection to the music and each other way before stepping into any sort of studio. Jordan specifically was drawn to the sounds of the Delphonics, the Spinners, and the Philadelphia soul group, the Stylistics. Now, keep in mind, these were still just teens, spending time at school, getting their studies in, and then off to practice everything for their blossoming career. Singing, choreography, lyric writing, everything. The grind for these young men did start to pay off quickly, as the four of them became a cohesive unit under all the practice and pressure. It was the management that felt the group was still lacking something. Maurice Starr wanted some sort of answer to Michael Jackson, a standout, who Starr found would be the youngest member to join the group permanently. Joseph Mulry McIntyre, another Massachusetts native, born on New Year's Eve, 1972, was raised in the Jamaican Plain neighborhood of Boston, son of Thomas and Catherine, and the youngest of his 8 other siblings. With a family so large, it was difficult to be noticed, but Joey did his best. Taking cues from his mother, who was a veteran of the community theater, he was drawn to the stage and the spotlight. If he was asked to act, he would learn. If he was asked to sing, he would project to the back wall. Joey had skill as well as a fighting spirit, something that would come in handy walking into a group that already had a bond. At the start, the 4 bandmates attempted to welcome the newest member, but there was a clear separation that needed to be addressed. Joey, like the former member Jamie Kelly, was younger than the rest at the age of 12. McIntyre was also not a prior classmate or friend, so there was a period of awkwardness that everyone needed to overcome. There was also a difference in experience. The other 4 had already had some time either working together as partners or as duos. The Knight brothers, and Donnie and Danny as the Kool-Aid Bunch. Plus, as if this wasn't enough, all the young men were in the time of their lives trying to figure out who they were as growing teens, never mind who they were in a group. Eventually, they started to find each other's strengths in the band and what they could bring individually. What followed was the grind of rehearsal. They would practice after school, on weekends, during study blocks, anytime they weren't busy with education or family events. This hustle would eventually pay off in late 1985. Columbia Records took notice, offering a contract. While the management duo had an eye for talent, Starr and Alford didn't have much for creativity. With the contract on the table, the first important question was, what's the name of the group? The answer that came was Nanook. No one is really sure why Maurice gave that answer, but the record executives immediately said, no, change it. Struggling to find a replacement name quickly, he picked the name of a rap song written by Donnie, New Kids on the Block. New Kids on the Block, debut album, recorded November 12th, 1985 to February 23rd, 1986 in Boston, Massachusetts. Released on April 1st, 1986. Official singles, Be My Girl, Stop It Girl, and Didn't I Blow Your Mind This Time? For the first time, the boys heard their voices on the radio. Be My Girl was getting airplay on the pop and top 40 stations in Boston. But that was it. The second single, Stop It Girl, didn't do any better, failing to get any sort of positive attention, not even charting, and worse still, becoming a bit of a punchline with music fans. Sales of the boys' first album at the time of release was barely registering. Maybe it was the controlling factor of manager Maurice, or the fact that he had a band that consisted of boys in their early teens. Perhaps he couldn't envision this group coming across as anything but sweet and innocent. Whatever the case was, 95% of this album was Maurice Starr. The instruments, the lyrics, the mixing, even the album cover and the look of the group on stage was all Starr's doing, and it didn't work well. The group was quickly considered to be of the genre bubblegum pop and regarded as anything but serious. While on the debut album tour, which took the group to anywhere that would have them, they performed at bars, school dances, clubs, and the occasional county fair. With each performance, what cheers there were transitioned to boos and laughter. Danny and Donnie attempted to get the audience back by breakdancing during performances, but that too was met with laughter and ridicule, regardless of their skill. All of this did not bode well for the band or the management team. Columbia Records was having some serious buyer's remorse and was threatening to cancel the contract. Starr, ever the believer in learning from mistakes, persuaded the label to give them a second chance. In 1987, New Kids on the Block were back in the studio, feeling frustrated, annoyed, and really unimpressed with the reception of their first album. Mostly with the lack of input or control. Everything was out of their hands other than singing the lyrics written for them by Starr, minus one song. At the request of Jordan Knight, the group recorded a cover of the Delphonics' 1969 hit, Didn't I Blow Your Mind This Time? While the Delphonics had horns and strings for the classic slow ballad, the New Kids used modern instruments while keeping as much of the inspired Philadelphia soul style and sound. Even to this day, during live performances, you can see the simple choreography of what would be considered a 60s soul backup choir as Jordan sings lead. The boys believed in that one song while they were ready to step up and start taking control of their work. Hanging Tough, sophomore album, recorded May 5th, 1987 to April 22nd, 1988 in Boston, Massachusetts and Warren, Rhode Island. Released on August 12th, 1988. Official singles, Please Don't Go Girl, You Got It, The Right Stuff, I'll Be Loving You Forever, title track Hanging Tough, and Cover Girl. Upon the release of the first single, Please Don't Go Girl, the response was quiet. This seemingly spelled doom for the group. The first album was a flop. The tour was as rough as could be, and even though the boys tried to have their say, nothing was catching the attention of the world. The record label was ready to drop the band when, almost as if in the 11th hour, a pop station in Florida began playing Please Don't Go Girl. Like wildfire, requests for the song on that station and outlying stations started pouring in. The New Kids on the Block became a sudden success. To promote the album, it was back on the tour bus. This time around, they landed an opportunity to open for a well-established pop artist in Tiffany. While touring, they were asked to make TV appearances on Soul Train, Showtime at the Apollo, and a few talk shows. Within a year, the album Hanging Tough sold 8 million copies in North America and 15 million copies worldwide. While the first single was a time-release success, the follow-up was an instant hit. Initially titled The Right Stuff, it reached the top 5 in January 1989, becoming the group's first smash hit. While writing credit went to Maurice Starr yet again, it was the input of the boys themselves as well as Donnie's rap skills that inspired the tone and the structure of the song. Shortly after, there was an adjustment needed as a different star had just released a debut hit of her own titled The Right Stuff. Vanessa Williams had no intention of riding coattails. The first version of her song was actually released a year prior in 1988. When the New Kids released their song in 1989, Williams' team released a remixed version of the song at the same time, unaware of the timing. Clever DJs and record spinners during this period would play both artists' songs back to back as, adorably, both songs are singing the praises of desired lovers, one from each point of view. Regardless, to keep from getting confused, the New Kids song was adjusted to the title, You Got It, The Right Stuff. The management team knew it was time to strike as the metaphorical iron was red hot. A second tour was scheduled in 1989, once again with Tiffany. This time around, it was the New Kids on the Block that was the headliner with Tiffany to open. Fortunately for each party, both were billed as co-headliners. During this time, the group retreated to another chart topper as I'll Be Loving You Forever reached number 1, closely followed by Cover Girl and the title track Hanging Tough. The record studio was in a frenzy at the time. 4 hits in a row on one album, and the group was touring like mad. How can they capitalize on this without anyone in the studio? Wisely, they reached back to the debut album that was overlooked a few years prior and re-released the one song that everyone felt deserved a second chance. The song originally done by the Delphonics, Didn't I Blow Your Mind This Time? The New Kids on the Block now had 5 hits in a row as the cover song quickly climbed the charts. It was all about second chances. Maurice Starr, learning from his mistakes, recruiting a new group instead of making something from an established one. The sophomore album that came from a failure of a bubblegum pop debut. An overlooked cover from the Delphonics to complete the 5-hit set for the year, and the first hit. All about asking a lover to give a relationship a second chance with Please Don't Go Girl. What followed was a bit of a standard for bands as they got together to release a Christmas album, Merry, Merry Christmas. It was a mix of familiar classic holiday tunes and a handful of originals. The lead-off track would become the group's next number 1 hit. This one's For the Children. The album cover had the New Kids in winter festive wear, seemingly riding a toboggan down a snowy hill. Side note, Seattle deathcore band I Declare War used the exact same photo of the New Kids on the Block in a winter setting for their Christmas EP in 2007, titled Bring the Season. The New Kids on the Block would have the #1 spot again in 1990 with Step by Step. The album and the title track would be the last time the group would be on top of the charts, though. The kids were no longer kids, as they were getting into their 20s. Wanting more creative control over the song composition, lyrics, and group look, friction between the group and the management started reaching a boiling point. Donnie and Jordan felt stifled. Jonathan was starting to look outside the group. Joey was becoming more interested in the stage. Worse still, thanks to the backlash left over from Milli Vanilli's scandal, the New Kids were being accused of lip-syncing during their live performances. Trying to address the situation, the 5 of them appeared on the Arsenio Hall show to state they never lip-sync, but they do use backing tracks, a technique used to make live voices sound more rich, adding depth and texture to the live feed. In 1993, 2 things changed. 1, the group split from Maurice Starr. 2, they were now known as N.K.O.T.B, trying to come across as adults, not kids. They released their 4th album, Face the Music. Not as well received as the prior releases, they hit the road to promote the album. The crowds were smaller, stadiums were fewer, the merch sales dwindled. Jonathan Knight left the band. The band officially closed up shop shortly after. Jonathan Knight and Danny Wood would retire to civilian life. Donnie would follow his younger brother, the now former Marky Mark, Mark Wahlberg, into Hollywood and start an acting career. Jordan Knight and Joey McIntyre would release solo albums in the following years, but nothing really got the attention of the fans. McIntyre jumped into acting as well as he took to the stage and theater. Jordan dabbled in reality TV and variety show appearances. The band got back together in 2008, a little more wise, a little more humble, and with plenty of life experience. They released a full album upon their reformation, The Block. Toured with the likes of Lady Gaga and Natasha Bedingfield. A few years later, in 2010, like witnessing worlds colliding, the New Kids toured with the Backstreet Boys, dubbing the tour NKOTBSB Tour. These days, you can get back to the 90s and see the New Kids on the Block perform in Las Vegas, performing their classics as well as songs from their 2024 release, Still Kids. This has been Breakout Backstories. I'm JD Boutillier. If you would like to check out other projects I'm a part of, you can find me online at TheMediajack.ca or anywhere on social media under the handle TheMediajack. I am an independent content creator, and if you would like to support me in what I do, feel free to leave a comment, subscribe, or, if you feel so inclined, join my Patreon. Again, everything can be found at TheMediajack.ca. Thanks for joining me.